Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now today we're testing Halo Campaign Evolved on nothing but integrated graphics using two hardware configurations at the opposite end of the performance spectrum. I never played the original, I've always been a PlayStation guy, truth be told, but I've been pretty excited to try this out. The excitement faded a bit when I read that the multiplayer is missing and it's based on Unreal Engine 5, but it certainly looks good and it's giving my i5-12400F and RX 7600 system a good workout. I've had to use the low preset with FSR set to Ultra or 67% rescaling to hit at least 60 FPS consistently. The gameplay here is basically for some performance context, but it doesn't give me too much hope for our graphics card-less solutions. So let's start at the high end with this. Now this sits at the extreme end of the integrated graphics spectrum. It's an incredibly quick machine, but also very expensive, and it's one that rivals many modern entry-level cards when it comes to gaming. It's called the Beelink GTR9 Pro, and it features a 16-core Ryzen Max Plus 395, 128 gigs of 8000 MHz RAM, and Radeon 8060S graphics. We've looked at it before on the channel and it's probably not too far off the performance of the Radeon RX 7600 we checked out just now at the beginning of the video, so we'll be targeting 60 FPS with this. Sure enough, it does deliver similar results. We still need FSR to hit at least 60 FPS consistently, and once again I went with the low preset with 67% resolution scaling. Interestingly, I carried out a brief native resolution test and this machine managed to hit 60 frames per second more often than our discrete AMD card, but this is the more comfortable way to play. Now we can choose between FSR and TSR, with the former looking sharper, and because of this FSR Ultra is going to look better than TSR native while delivering better performance, so bear that in mind. Now of course performance is subject to change throughout the entirety of the game. Some levels will perform better than others and some will perform worse, but I thought this early level with constant on-screen action was a solid test of our hardware today. But let's talk lower priced, more widely available options. If you are a frequent viewer of these integrated graphics gaming videos, then you'll know I really like the Ryzen 5 5600G. It's a pretty versatile chip, as it can be paired with bottom of the barrel motherboards and still deliver its intended performance. And that's what I've done here. We have a cheap A320 AM4 board with 16 gigs of 3200 MHz dual channel RAM. The 6-core 12-thread 5600G with its onboard Radeon graphics doesn't receive driver updates as often as newer hardware, so will it even be able to run the Halo remake? Well, this time we'll be targeting 30 frames per second. Shader compilation will take a little bit longer as expected, but once we're there, well, we're ready to play. So let's quickly run through the settings. Now as I mentioned, Halo Campaign Evolved has a couple of upscaling choices for our AMD hardware, TSR and FSR. With TSR we can also drop the resolution scale, which I think is just going to run the game at a lower fixed resolution instead of upscaling it. Even at its lowest value, 50%, it won't offer the level of performance that FSR does. Once again we have the lowest settings enabled, but 30 frames per second is a more realistic target for the 5600G. Of course FSR is also set to low, so we're rendering internally at 33%, but it doesn't look as bad because it's upscaled to 1920 by 1080. Now as a quick side note, it seems as though the async compute option doesn't make any noticeable difference to the performance with this hardware, whereas before with the 8060S it gave us, well, about 1, maybe 2 extra frames if we were lucky, so didn't seem to make much of a difference there either. Unfortunately, all of these options combined aren't enough for 30 FPS, which I think we sort of expected, and we do seem to be missing a lot of grass textures here as well. Maybe this is VRAM related, though there's no specific limit in place, the system is just using what it wants. Missing grass would be more tolerable if the performance numbers were higher, but that isn't possible here. Or is it? Before we drop the native resolution to 720p, let's talk about frame generation. Enabling frame gen will still feel pretty horrible, especially with a starting frame rate of less than 30, not to mention the latency. Simply put, it just feels weird. It's like using my mouse on an ice rink. If you'd rather not use this, and I'd 100,000,000% understand why, then dropping the resolution to 720p using the previously tested settings, albeit with frame gen off, will give us similar performance to before. 720p low with FSR at 33% isn't pretty, but it does mean that the game feels a bit better to play than beforehand. Obviously, it's not ideal for most people, but the idea behind these videos is always just to see if we can do something instead of whether we should do something. But let's introduce frame generation into the mix once again, this time with our 720p gameplay here. Now we're not too far off 60 frame gen frames now, and in terms of latency it doesn't feel anywhere near as terrible or sluggish as it did before. As someone who is not a fan of frame gen, and I've mentioned this before, I have to say this feels better than I was expecting. There will be moments where we even see at least 60 FPS on paper, though this isn't real frame rate in the traditional sense. That said, it definitely feels better than what 1080p with frame gen could offer. Now if only we could find some way to make the grass actually load properly. That's all for this one. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see all of you next time. Leave your thoughts down below in the comments, and if you play without a graphics card, well, let me know about your experience too. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.